moment everything changed. Nobody expected Victor Wembanyama to walk away from the NBA Finals like this. Not after a 6-2 win season. Not after dominating the Western Conference. Not after spending months hearing that the future of the NBA had officially arrived. But as the final seconds disappeared from the clock inside a stunned San Antonio arena, something happened that instantly changed the conversation around the league. While New York Knicks players exploded with joy, while confetti prepared to fall, and while Jalen Brunson celebrated one of the greatest finals performances in recent memory, Victor Wembanyama turned and walked away. No smile, no celebration, no acceptance, just silence. And within minutes, the entire basketball world was asking the same question. Was this simply the painful reaction of a young superstar experiencing his first finals heartbreak? Or was it the first glimpse of a completely different Victor Wembanyama? Because make no mistake, this wasn't supposed to happen. The San Antonio Spurs entered the NBA Finals looking like the league's next dynasty. They had won 62 games. They had defeated elite opponents throughout the season. They had conquered the defending champion Thunder. Analysts were already discussing how many championships Wembanyama might win before turning 30. Some were even beginning to whisper a dangerous word, GOAT. Then reality arrived. The New York Knicks shocked the basketball world by defeating San Antonio 4-1, closing out the series with a brutal 94-90 victory on the Spurs' home floor. And the most painful part, San Antonio didn't lose because they weren't talented enough. They lost because they couldn't finish. Again, and again, and again. Every Spurs fan in that building knew it. Every player knew it, especially Victor Wembanyama. The young superstar watched double-digit leads disappear throughout the series. He watched opportunities slip through his fingers. He watched a championship that seemed destined for San Antonio slowly drift away possession by possession. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the disappointment wasn't just visible. It was overwhelming. Then came the moment that sent social media into absolute chaos. Instead of joining the traditional post-game handshake line, Wembanyama headed toward the tunnel. Instantly, debates exploded across television shows, podcasts, YouTube channels, and sports media. Some called it disrespectful. Others called it competitive fire, but everyone was talking about it. And what Victor said just minutes later would make the story even bigger. Because instead of making excuses, instead of blaming teammates, instead of blaming coaches, Wembanyama delivered a message that nobody expected. A message that revealed exactly what this devastating loss meant to him. And according to many inside the NBA, those words may end up being more important than the finals loss itself. We're about to break down everything that happened, what Victor Wembanyama really meant, and why this heartbreaking defeat could become the beginning of something far more dangerous for the rest of the NBA. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from today. And if you believe this loss will make Wembanyama even stronger, comment 1 below. If you think the pressure is starting to expose real weaknesses in his game, comment 2. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications because the next part of this story gets even more dramatic. The collapse nobody could ignore. The worst part about San Antonio's finals loss wasn't that the Knicks were better every night. It was that the Spurs kept giving themselves a chance to win. Then they kept watching that chance disappear. Game after game, San Antonio built leads that should have changed the series. 14 points, 12 points, 29 points, 16 points. Those weren't tiny swings. Those were championship-level advantages. And somehow, the Spurs lost all 4 games. That is what made this defeat feel different. This wasn't a young team getting destroyed from the opening tip. This was a young team touching the trophy with one hand, then losing its grip every time the pressure got heavy. Game 4 became the nightmare that will follow this roster all summer. San Antonio led by 29. The crowd believed the series was about to shift. The Spurs looked faster, longer, more explosive, and for a moment, the Knicks looked overwhelmed. Then, the game changed. New York stopped rushing. Brunson started controlling every possession. Mitchell Robinson attacked the glass. The Knicks turned the game into a fight, and San Antonio slowly lost rhythm, patience, and control. By the fourth quarter, the Spurs no longer looked like a 6-2 win machine. They looked young, they looked tight. They looked like a team that suddenly realized the finals are not won by highlights. They are won by discipline, spacing, late game execution, and emotional control. That was the real lesson. Talent can build a lead. Experience protects it. And in this series, the Knicks protected the moment better than San Antonio did. Wembanyama was still terrifying defensively. His presence changed shots before players even released the ball. But when the game slowed down, when every possession became a test, the Spurs offense became predictable. Too many rushed threes, too many empty possessions, too many moments where everyone waited for Wemby to save them. And when he couldn't, the whole team froze. That is why the loss hurt so much. Because San Antonio wasn't far away, they were close enough to know exactly what they wasted. Wemby's painful. Game 5. Game 5 was supposed to be Victor Wembanyama's response. The arena was ready for it. Spurs fans were desperate for one more stand. The entire basketball world expected Wemby to deliver the kind of performance that makes critics go silent. For a while, it looked like he might. Early in the game, he protected the rim like a one-man security system. Knicks players drove into the paint and immediately changed their mind. He blocked shots, altered floaters, and made New York think twice before attacking the basket. But as the game continued, the pressure started to show. Wembanyama finished with 19 points on 7 of 19 shooting. The numbers weren't embarrassing, but they weren't enough for a player expected to own the biggest stage in basketball. And that's the cruel reality of superstardom. When you are Victor Wembanyama, good is not good enough, especially not in an elimination game. The missed shots were painful. The missed free throw late in the fourth quarter was even worse. With the Spurs trailing in every possession, feeling like the season itself, Wemby had a chance to pull San Antonio closer. The shot missed. Then came another brutal moment. Mitchell Robinson fought for a key offensive rebound, giving the Knicks another possession when the Spurs desperately needed a stop. Those are the plays, fans, remember. Not because they define a player forever, but because they define a series. In the final minutes, Wembanyama looked exhausted. Not defeated, but drained. The Knicks had spent 5 games forcing him to work for everything. Every catch was contested. Every move was crowded. Every mistake was punished. And for the first time in his young career, Wemby looked human. That shocked people. Because the NBA had spent the whole season treating him like something beyond normal basketball logic, but the finals stripped everything down. No myth, no hype, no future projection, just pressure. And under that pressure, Wembanyama discovered the difference between being the most talented player on the floor and being the player who closes the door when a championship is on the line. The walk to the tunnel. Then came the moment that turned a finals loss into a national argument. The buzzer sounded, the Knicks celebrated. The Spurs stood frozen, and Victor Wembanyama walked away. No handshake line, no long embrace with Jalen Brunson, no public congratulations. Just a quiet turn toward the tunnel while New York celebrated the championship on his home court. That single image traveled faster than any box score. Within minutes, clips were everywhere. Some fans were angry. They said Wemby had failed a basic test of sportsmanship. They argued that if he wants to be the face of the NBA, he has to show respect, even when the moment hurts. Others saw it completely differently. To them, that walk wasn't disrespect. It was fire. It was a young superstar refusing to smile for the cameras while another team celebrated the dream he believed belonged to him. And that is why the debate became so intense. Because both sides could see what they wanted to see. If you already thought Wembanyama was being crowned too early, this was proof that the pressure had exposed him. If you believed he had the mentality of a future champion, this was proof that losing burned him too deeply to fake happiness. The truth may sit somewhere in the middle. Wembanyama was hurt. He was embarrassed, he was angry with himself, and in that moment, he didn't have the emotional space to perform tradition. Was it perfect? No. Was it understandable? Absolutely. But the NBA stage is unforgiving. Every move becomes a message. Every silence becomes a headlock. And Wemby learned that night that being great isn't only about what you do during the game. It's also about what people expect from you after the pain arrives. That walk to the tunnel may not define his career, but it became the first real crack in the perfect image the league had built around him. And sometimes, that crack is where the real story begins. The media war begins. Once the handshake controversy hit television, the conversation exploded. Kendrick Perkins looked at Wembanyama's decision and saw something the NBA has been missing: edge. He argued that Wemby didn't owe a warm congratulations to the team that had just crushed his championship dream. To Perkins, this wasn't weakness. It was rivalry. It was competitive anger. It was the kind of cold-blooded emotion that can turn a great talent into a dangerous opponent. In his eyes, the league needed that. Not every superstar has to smile after losing. Not every competitor has to pretend pain feels polite. But Stephen A. Smith saw a different message. He made it clear that his issue wasn't competitiveness. His issue was responsibility. If Wembanyama wants to become the face of the NBA, then the standard changes. The spotlight gets heavier. The expectations become bigger than personal frustration. Draymond Green leaned into that same idea. He understood emotion. He understood rivalry. But he also understood the symbolic weight of the final stage. Millions of people were watching. Young fans were watching. Future stars were watching. And the message mattered. That is when the debate became bigger than one handshake. It became a debate about what kind of superstar Wembanyama is going to be. Is he the respectful global ambassador the league can build around? Or is he the cold, intense competitor who might not care whether people like him. The funny thing is, the NBA has always wanted both. Fans say they want sportsmanship, but they also love villains. They say they want humility, but they replay arrogance. They criticize emotion, then complain when players sound too scripted. Wembanyama got caught inside that contradiction. And for the first time, he wasn't being discussed only as a basketball unicorn. He was being judged as a personality, as a leader, as a future symbol of the league. That pressure will not disappear. From this point forward, every reaction, every quote, every playoff loss will be measured differently. Because the NBA no longer sees Wemby as a young prospect. It sees him as a superstar who must now answer for everything. The press conference that changed the tone. When Wembanyama finally sat in front of the microphones, the room felt different. This wasn't a normal post-game interview. This was a young superstar trying to explain the most painful night of his career while the team that beat him was still celebrating nearby. His face said everything before his words did. He looked exhausted. He looked frustrated, but he did not look broken. Then he said the line that changed the entire conversation. This was the biggest lesson of his life, not just his basketball life, his life. That statement mattered because Wemby didn't hide from the moment. He didn't blame the referees. He didn't point at his teammates. He didn't say the Spurs were unlucky. He sat there and admitted that the finals had taught him something he had never felt before. The margin of error is razor thin. That was the message. At this level, one missed free throw can haunt you. One bad rotation can swing a series. One careless possession can erase months of work. Wembanyama also said San Antonio had stretches where it dominated the series. And that comment immediately divided people again. Critics said it sounded arrogant. Supporters said it was accurate. Because the Spurs did dominate at times, they built huge leads, they controlled long stretches, they made the Knicks look uncomfortable, but domination in pieces does not win a championship. Closing does. That is the difference Wemby had to learn. The finals don't care how good you looked in the second quarter if you collapse in the fourth. They don't reward potential. They reward completion, and that is why his words carried so much weight. He wasn't saying the Knicks didn't deserve the title. He was saying the Spurs were close enough to feel how much they had wasted. That is a dangerous realization. Because when a player like Wembanyama learns exactly where the pain came from, he doesn't forget it. He studies it. He carries it. He builds around it. And the next time he reaches that stage, the rest of the league may see a very different version of him. How the Spurs got here so fast. To understand why this loss hit so hard, you have to remember where San Antonio came from. This wasn't supposed to happen this quickly. The Spurs were young. Their core was still growing. Their superstar was still learning the league. Most teams in that position are just trying to win a playoff series. Maybe scare a contender, maybe prove the future is bright. San Antonio skipped steps. They went from a rebuilding team to a 6-2 win monster. They didn't just rise, they arrived. Behind Wembanyama, the Spurs became one of the most feared teams in the NBA. Their defense had impossible length. Their offense had more confidence. Their young players began to believe they belonged in every arena against every opponent. Then came the playoffs. They handled pressure better than expected. They beat Minnesota. Then they faced Oklahoma City, the defending champions, and that was supposed to be the real test. Instead, San Antonio made the basketball world believe. When the Spurs took down the Thunder, the narrative changed overnight. Suddenly, this wasn't a cute young team ahead of schedule. This was a real title threat. Wembanyama became the center of everything. Every block felt like a warning. Every three-pointer felt unfair. Every possession reminded fans that the NBA had never seen a player quite like this. And that is exactly why the finals loss became so painful. Because once San Antonio beat the West, people stopped talking about progress. They started talking about destiny. The Spurs were no longer being judged as a young team learning how to win. They were judged like champions before they had actually become champion. That is a heavy burden. And in the finals, that burden finally showed. The Knicks were older, tougher, calmer, and more prepared for late-game chaos. They didn't panic when they were down. They didn't break when Wemby blocked shots. They kept coming. San Antonio had the talent to win. New York had the patience to survive. That difference decided everything. But it also revealed something frightening. If this version of the Spurs was already one series away from a title, what happens when they actually learn how to close? The weight on Wembanyama's shoulders. Victor Wembanyama is not carrying normal expectation. From the moment he entered the NBA, people didn't talk about him like a prospect. They talked about him like a basketball event. A 7'4" player who blocks shots like a center, shoots like a wing, handles the ball like a guard, and sees the game with a calm that feels impossible for someone his age. That kind of talent creates excitement, but it also creates pressure that never turns off. Every great game becomes proof of destiny. Every bad game becomes a warning sign. Every emotional moment becomes a debate. And this season showed the full weight of that reality. Wembanyama wasn't just asked to lead the Spurs statistically. He was asked to become the emotional center of a franchise that believed its championship window had opened earlier than expected. He had to protect the rim, carry the offense, answer the media, absorb criticism, handle praise, and somehow stay human through all of it. That is why the personal moments matter too. Earlier in the season, when he fought through grief after losing someone close to him, fans saw a different side of him. Not the alien, not the unicorn, not the future face of the league, just a young man trying to compete while carrying pain that had nothing to do with basketball. That context doesn't excuse every mistake, but it makes the story deeper. Wembanyama is not a machine built in a laboratory. He is a two-year-old asked to live under a microscope while the entire basketball world debates his legacy before it has even fully begun. And still, the production is historic. The blocks, the rebounds, the scoring, the defensive impact. The way opponents change their entire game plan just because he is standing near the rim. Those things are real. But the finals prove that greatness has layers. Physical gifts can get you to the stage. Emotional control helps you survive it. Leadership helps you win on it. That is the next evolution for Wemby. Not more hype. Not more highlights. But command. The kind of command that settles a team when a 2-0 point lead starts shrinking. The kind that turns panic into poise. The kind that turns a superstar into a champion. The real problem San Antonio must fix. The Spurs don't need to panic, but they do need to be honest. This finals loss exposed the gap between being talented enough to win and being mature enough to finish. That gap is where championships are decided. San Antonio had enough length, enough skill, enough star power, enough defensive force. But when the Knicks slowed the game down and attacked every weakness, the Spurs started searching for answers they didn't always have. Their half-court offense became too dependent on Wembanyama. Their guards struggled to consistently punish New York's pressure. Their spacing got tight. Their decision-making got rushed. And when the game entered the final 2 minutes, the Spurs looked like a team still learning how to breathe. That is not a disaster, but it is a warning because the rest of the NBA has now seen the blueprint. Make Wemby work early. Crowd his catches, attack the glass, force San Antonio's secondary creators to beat you, drag the game into the fourth quarter, then test their nerve. New York did that better than anyone, and San Antonio failed the test often enough to lose the series. The front office now has a clear mission. Build a roster that doesn't just look good around Wembanyama in February. Build one that can survive around him in June. That means stronger ball handling, more reliable shooting, more veteran, calm, more late game structure, and most importantly, more trust that every possession doesn't need to become a Wemby rescue mission. Because even a generational player needs help. Michael Jordan needed it. LeBron James needed it. Stephen Curry needed it. Victor Wembanyama will need it too. The good news for San Antonio is that most of these problems are fixable. Experience can be gained. Rotations can be improved. Clutch offense can be sharpened. But emotional scars from the finals can go one of two ways. They can create fear or they can create focus. For the Spurs, this summer decides which one it becomes. They don't have to rebuild, they have to refine. They don't have to change the identity, they have to strengthen it. Because the blueprint is already there. Now they must turn it into something that survives pressure. The blueprint and the lesson, the Knicks left San Antonio with the championship, the Spurs left with something much more painful, a lesson. And sometimes in the NBA, the lesson comes before the legacy. New York earned its ring. They were tougher in the closing moments, calmer under pressure, and sharper when the series demanded execution. Jalen Brunson turned the finals into his stage, and the Knicks proved that experience, discipline, and belief can still overcome raw basketball brilliance. But San Antonio did not leave empty. They left with proof that Wembanyama can lead a team to the final, proof that their young core can survive the Western Conference, proof that their ceiling is not imaginary, and proof that the rest of the NBA has a serious problem coming. Because the scariest version of Victor Wembanyama may not be the one who dominated the regular season. It may be the one who remembers how this felt, the one who remembers walking off his home floor while another team celebrated, the one who remembers every missed opportunity, every blown lead, every question from reporters, every debate about whether he handled the moment the right way. That kind of pain can destroy some players, but it can also sharpen the rare one. The lesson for Wemby is simple but powerful. Greatness is not only about talent. It is about patience, humility, resilience, and respect for the process. You can be gifted and still need growth. You can be dominant and still need help. You can lose badly and still be moving towards something special. For the Spurs, the lesson is just as clear. Don't run from this loss. Study it, own it, improve from it. Build smarter, play calmer, and never assume a lead is safe until the final buzzer sounds. For fans, there is a human lesson too. These athletes are not superheroes without emotion. They carry pressure, grief, expectations, criticism, and disappointment in front of millions of people. it is easy to judge a reaction from a screen. It is harder to understand the weight behind it. So maybe this story is not about Wembanyama failing. Maybe it is about him finally meeting the kind of pain every champion must face before becoming complete. The Knicks have the ring, the Spurs have the blueprint, and Victor Wembanyama has the fuel. If you believe Wemby will come back stronger from this finals loss, comment one below. If you think the Spurs still need major changes before winning a championship, comment 2. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with every NBA fan who needs to hear this story. Because this may not be the end of Wembanyama's rise. It may be the night that truly started it.